Hi, this is Dan Heisman, Philly tutor for Chess FM, and this is the Improve Your Chess video series for ICC members. In today's game, we're going to look at a game played between two high-class players in a tournament in Mexico, and it's a very interesting game, so let's get right to it. All right, white opened up with e4, and black played Sicilian, c5, and white offered the Morra Gambit, d4. If you're not familiar with gambits, the general rule is take them. You can always give back the material later, but trying to decline them if you don't know what you're doing could be dangerous. By the way, the time stamping here is not right, of course. This is just an ICC stamping, and this was an over-the-board game. All right, black correctly takes the pawn, white offers the gambit, and now black has many choices. I guess the four most popular are to take the pawn, to decline with d5, to decline with knight f6, and there's kind of a modern line where you play g6, c takes d, d5. I would say those are the big four, and there's also the French kind of transposition-y move e6 is possible, although that's not necessarily a very good variation for black, but it's okay. So black chooses the knight f6 variation, attacking the e-pawn, and white attacks the knight, and the knight goes to d5. And now white plays the main line, which is knight f3. Notice he's not really offering the pawn anymore because d takes c3 is met by queen takes d5. So the pawn is pinned. It's not going anywhere. Black plays knight c6. Could also play d6. White takes the pawn. And now the two big moves for black here are d6 and e6. And black plays e6. All right. Now it's worth mentioning on d6, one of the main lines is bishop c4. And here black can play e6. There are lines with bishop b6. I've actually had people play like bishop takes f7 check against me there. All right, so black plays e6, and white plays the interesting move knight c3. And now black has several things he should do. He can break up the center with d6, which is always popular, or he could first pin bishop b4. Instead, black makes a mistake here, which characterizes the opening. He plays almost as if it's the d6 bishop c4 line. In that line, knight b6 makes a lot of sense because it wins a tempo by hitting the bishop. It doesn't win a tempo, but it doesn't lose a tempo because the knight moving the third time is neutralized by the fact that the bishop has to be saved. But in this position, he's not hitting the bishop, so knight b6 really doesn't make a lot of sense. If you're worried about double pawns and you play d6, you have to realize that knight takes, pawn takes will not double your pawns because there's no way white can stop black from trading the other pawn on d6 to the pawn on e5 one way or the other. So this is not going to be doubled isolated pawns. Okay, so in the game, after knight b6, white simply plays bishop d3. I asked the computer what he would play, and the computer preferred bishop g5, but wasn't a big difference. a6 for black, again, kind of a strange move. I'm not sure he really wants to put the queen on c7, but that's the way you would play a6 in this position, is just to kind of keep the knight out. And white castles. White has a nice little advantage already. Black decides to develop the bishop to e7. And now, again, I asked the computer what it would do here, and it thinks maybe the strange-looking bishop f4 is the best move. Now, bishop f4 looks strange because it's blocked by the e-pawn, but notice what it really does is play against the